Good evening, and welcome along to Robin Elliott tonight. It is Eurovision weekend, and tonight we've got a bit of a Eurovision theme going on because Brian Kennedy is going to be with us. He, of course, represented Ireland back in 2006. I'll also be chatting to the former Hollyoaks and Coronation Street actor Adam Rickitt. He'll be here a little bit later on, and we'll be chatting about some brand new murals depicting life in East Belfast. They've been commissioned by the East Belfast Enterprise. Jonathan McAlpine will tell us more a little bit later on. And we'll also be chatting to Dundonald-based guitar company IBC Music. They've just won the King's Award for Enterprise, and Ian Wilson from the company will be here a bit later as well. So keep it right here on NVTV. But starting us off on the show this evening, we can go over to Liverpool, where of course the Eurovision Song Contest is taking place this weekend. And earlier on today, I caught up with broadcaster and Eurovision expert Robin Scott. Here's what happened.
Hello Robin, it's the other Robin here in Liverpool, where I've been here for the week and I've been entertained and amazed by what's been happening at the rehearsals. And now we know who's going to be part of the main show. No real surprises. Sweden and the singer called Larne, who won with Euphoria, went right around the world. That is back with a song called Tattoo. And the staging is quite unusual because she seems to be sandwiched in some sort of sunbed. Hope she doesn't have any skin problems, but she performs immaculately, as does the singer called Karia, who is a guy from Finland whose song is all about getting away from the drudgery of your normal work to party. He does it in a very quirky way, and the audience absolutely love it. You also have some of the qualifiers. You have the older guys from Croatia who have an anti-war theme, and it does capture imagination, it gets the crowd going, and that's part of the trick of qualifying for the Eurovision Song Contest. There was a sad news, of course, that Ireland didn't qualify, and the moment that the last song was announced to qualify for the final, Conor, the lead singer from Wild Youth, he was off, and the band followed him very soon afterwards. Not sure about that, because I think having a theme about peace and love, and wearing something that's glittery, flared, and has this idea of being somewhat retro, didn't really do it for me. After 9 years of not of qualifying once in that period of time, I think Ireland really need to rethink what they are about. Now, the UK, of course, they have had their own problems until Sam Ryder came along last year, and this time May Muller, she's got quite a challenge because everyone's expecting a lot from her. The song is very good. I think her vocals are... Well, maybe she needs a little more support, but that's just from the rehearsals that we've seen. Maybe on the night, she pull it off. Spain have a very unusual one as well, because it's sort of a new style of sort of Spanish singing that the crowd love, but to me it's a bit too, I don't know what the word is, a bit too Spanish. And you need to cater for the audience that is watching it, that is international. And we'll see what comes of that. There is an Italian song, the guy Paolo, he was in a few years ago and did quite well. This time it's a typical Italian good ballad. Maybe it's just not going to capture the imagination the way that other songs have done. So what is there to look forward to? There's several hours of entertainment, interval acts, great presenters, and the BBC have done the contest proud. I'm lucky to be here. I'll be there sitting on the night watching it all. The tickets were like gold dust, but I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So I hope you enjoy watching the event, and we'll see if there's any surprises. So this is Robin in the Press Centre at Eurovision in Liverpool. Back to Robin in Belfast.
Now moving on to something a lot different now. We're being warned to be wary over the growing threat of people being targeted by get-rich-quick investment scams as the cost of living crisis puts family finances under increasing pressure, with new data showing the average amount of money lost per victim of this type of fraud has doubled in a year to 13,892. And about 24% of us are also willing to take more risks with their finances in order to make more money. That's according to a new survey from Nationwide. Well, former Hollyoaks and Coronation Street actor Adam Rickitt wants people to be vigilant, especially at this time, having been conned out of nearly £50,000 as a scammer pretended to be his bank. Let's hear his story. Adam joins us now on the line. How are you today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So we'll talk about your incident in just a minute, but according to the latest research by Nationwide, it's quite a scary thing we've discovered. About 24% of us are willing to take more risks with our finances in order to make more money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll come to news to anybody that scamming is rife. I think what will be the biggest shock is how rife it has become. If you took every single crime in this country, from speeding to shoplifting to murder to arson, and added them all together, it still doesn't even touch the sides of the amount of scams there are. It's 5 million scams a year now, which is costing us £4 billion a year. Now, they can take on many different shapes and forms. You know, my one was a banking scam where somebody pretended to be my own bank. But what we've seen and what Nationwide have found with this research is that there's been a massive increase in investment scamming. And that's down to the cost of living crisis. These scammers are not nice people, let's put it politely. And they've realized that in the current economic climate, people are desperate for every little bit they can get. So they are purposely targeting people who are hard up and who are struggling in the current crisis, and basically duping them with, you know, promises of great returns, and just ending up stealing on average £5,000 per person. Now, you know, in the scammers' minds, they might think this is a victim's crime because nobody's getting physically hurt or intimidated, but it's not. This is people's life savings. This is their nest egg. This is what they need to feed their children, is being taken away from them by these scammers. So Nationwide have undertaken a new campaign, which I was really happy to be asked to be involved in, which is to basically try and highlight the issue and highlight the steps we can all take as individuals to protect ourselves.
And the other scary thing is that as technology becomes more advanced, the scammers are also getting more advanced, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing is people can be so dismissive about it because they, you know, oh, I'd never fall for that. It isn't some guy called Bob ringing you up and saying, you've won the Nigerian lottery, send me £10,000 and I'll send you £1 million. For example, the one which I fell victim to, they cloned my bank's phone numbers. They cloned my bank's text numbers. They cloned the bank's emails. They introduced themselves, and when I looked them up online, it was the people who worked at the Barclays fraud department. You know, they are incredibly clever in how they do this. And unfortunately, the technology has not really kept up to speed. I mean, it never occurred to me for 1 minute that when my bank was ringing me and I Googled the number, and on Barclays' own website, it said, this is the fraud line number. I never even thought for a second that a bank would be able to have its phone number cloned. But unfortunately, that's how sophisticated these guys are, not just in what they do, but also in how they do it. It is a psychological warfare. They are super. I mean, I don't respect them, but I take my hat off to how good they are. I mean, I had to, when I was talking to my wife about it yesterday, when I said I was doing this campaign, you know, she said, well, what would happen if those scammers rang you today? And I said, well, I'd know to hang up now. But if I engaged with them for even more than 1 minute, I'd probably fall for it again, because that is how convincing they are. They are so convincing. And, you know, I don't think people should be ashamed when they fall victim to it, because the resource and the time and the effort these scammers put into doing what they do is astronomical. And I think we as a population need to be educated to be better at protecting ourselves. But I do also think the system itself needs to be better. For every 1,000 scammers, there's only one prosecution. So, you know, you've got a 0.01% chance as a scammer of being caught. So, you know, it's all reward and no risk for them. So, you know, I think, you know, that's what this campaign is, though. This campaign is the first step on that pathway to trying to educate people.
So what had happened to you? How much did you lose then?
£50,000 we lost initially. So yeah, they took £50,000, and that was one of the worst moments in my life, because I had to turn around and say so to my wife. You know, I had to say, I've lost £50,000 of our life savings, and I was so embarrassed. That was the worst thing about it. I was so ashamed of it because of what I'd done to her. Not for me, because it was my fault. Blah blah blah. If it's my fault, I'll suck it up and I'll move on. But because it was her money as well. So I felt horrific. I mean, we were very unlucky, but also very lucky, in that we were very unlucky that the scam that we were targeted was almost too good. You know, they knew all our direct debits. They knew where we got cash out of the hole in the wall. Their impersonation of Barclays was literally perfect. And because of that, we were luckily found not to be at fault. So we got our money back. Because all the high street banks, not the internet banks, but the high street banks like Nationwide and Barclays and Santander, they do pay into this central fund where if you're deemed not to be at fault, you will get your money back or part thereof. The problem is, though, is that fine line between it being your fault and it not being your fault is incredibly fine, and is also always moving, because it's not a bottomless well of money, which is why people like Nationwide are doing this proactively now. They're trying to educate people and make them aware that the scams might be your bank calling you, but at the same time, it might also be somebody calling you and offering you what you think is salvation from the current economic crisis.
So if anyone does receive a phone call, the first thing to do is hang up and then phone your bank and check that the phone number is legitimate.
You know, this is my thing. Don't even start fishing to try and find out more details. You literally just hang up and you ring your bank straight away, and you say to them, you know, if you're with Nationwide, they've got a dedicated scammer alert line now, which if if you're a Nationwide customer, you can go onto their website and find the number for. Or if you're like me with a different bank, just ring the number on the back of your debit card. That's literally your only protection. I know it sounds like a horrible thing to say, but these scammers, it is like quicksand. If you put one foot in, you're gone. You're suffocated. What you have to do is just not even go near the situation. You just hang up the phone straight away, and you call that number and you ask your own bank for guidance.
And it's not just banks that are being scammed as well. I'm getting calls to my landline all the time from people pretending to be the broadband provider, saying your broadband will be turned off if you don't pay us so much money. There's so much of it going on, isn't there?
Or you'll get ones like, you'll get a text from Parcel Force with the link, and you click on the link and it takes you to the Parcel Force website, and you say that there's an outstanding invoice on your parcel of 32p, which you have to pay in order to get your parcel. But what you do by doing it is you give them access to your bank account. That's how sophisticated these things are. They are cloning all the institutions, the people we think we should trust. I mean, the silly version of it I give to people is, you come home from work and there's a load of police cars outside your house, and they stop you at the end of the street and they say to you, Mr. Rickitt, I'm very sorry, but your wife Katie's inside with a suspected terrorist holding a knife to her throat. We have got three options. Either we attack the house, in which case we can 100% guarantee we'll kill the terrorist, but I can't guarantee your wife's safety. We can try and talk him down. I can't guarantee you what the result will be or how long it will take. Or he's saying, if you give him your car keys, tell him where your car keys are, he will take the car and he'll drive away and leave Katie alone fine. So of course you say, yes, give the car keys. So the policeman rings through, tells the terrorist where the car keys are. He leaves the house, drives off in your car. The police car all speed off to try and catch him. You walk into the house and your wife's not there. Why is your wife not there? Because she never was. It was a scam. Exactly. The people you were meant to be trusting, the police force, the banks, the investment bankers, these are the people who are duping us because they're being cloned.
And also keep an eye on your bank accounts as well, because there are scammers who do take a little amount out of your bank account and then do it to somebody else, and it goes on and goes on and goes on. And even those little amounts, it does add up to thousands upon thousands, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's, as I say, it's £4 billion a year now we're losing as an economy. And, it's anything between £5,000 average in an investment scheme up to £13,000 in a banking scheme that's been taken away from people. I mean, vigilance is key. And if you ever see an unexpected transaction, you just get onto your bank straight away. And
Nationwide do have a good policy of supporting people who've been the victim of fraud, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They've got a great. I mean, kudos to them. They've been very proactive in that. A dedicated service for nationwide customers. Where if it's an investment scam, you can ring them and they will tell you whether it's true or not. If they turn around to you and they say, "Yeah, we think it's all right," and you follow through and you invest your money and it turns out to be a scam, Nationwide will then give you all your money back. And they will say, that's our fault, our problem, we should have dealt with it. So, that's fantastic. And, kudos to them. And I'm hoping other banks will follow suit. But in the first instance, you don't emotionally want to even go through that journey. Just don't get involved. Do not connect with the scammers. Hang up and speak to your bank first.
Well, Adam, thank you for sharing your story with us. Work-wise at the moment, anything exciting that we should know about?
Yes, hence the stupid haircut. I've got a new drama which I'm doing at the moment. I don't start filming it for a while yet, but it's one which was meant to be happening. Actually, it was meant to start filming straight away after I left Hollyoaks, but there was a little thing called COVID happened. But it is all now back on. So yeah, we start filming that in September.
And any plans to come back to see us in Belfast anytime soon?
I shall endeavour to. I'm sure I always manage to come back. When you think you got rid of me, I always manage to reappear at some point.
Well, lovely to talk to you, Adam. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
You too. Thanks so much, buddy.
And it's time now for our What's On guide, where we take a look to see what's happening throughout Belfast and beyond over the next week or so. And there's still time to catch Good Vibrations. It's back at the Grand Opera House and it runs right through until the 20th of May. It's returned by hugely popular demand. The Lyric Theatre's sellout production is now on stage at the Grand Opera House, and the musical version of the award-winning movie charts the life of Belfast punk legend Terry Hooley and the bands he helped propel onto the world stage, including the Undertones, Rudy and the Outcasts. Now, Lucy Spraggan celebrates the 10th anniversary of her first X Factor audition with her brand new single, Everything Changes. And the single samples Lucy's debut single, Last Night, that she performed at her first audition. And you can catch Lucy Spraggan at the Empire on Monday the 15th of May with The Rising in support. Now, Brian Downey on drums needs no introduction. Hailing originally from Dublin, Brian enjoyed his first taste of success in Ireland with the top 20 hit Morning Dew before forming a band called Orphanage with Phil Lynott. And of course, the two went on to form the legendary Thin Lizzy with Eric Bell, and Brian remained a constant member of the band until they split in 1983. And Brian is often cited as being influenced by many of the world's top drummers, and feels invigorated to be playing the songs he co-wrote in Thin Lizzy with his new band Alive and Dangerous. And you can catch them live at the Empire on the 20th of May. Now, Ralph McLean revisits Pink Floyd's classic album Dark Side of the Moon on vintage vinyl. And this is a very special event taking place at the Island Arts Centre in Lisburn on the 19th of May. And award-winning and Nothing Is Real podcaster Stephen Cockcroft and Ralph will share their thoughts on the album, and Anthony Toner gives us his renditions of some of his favourite tracks as well. And finally, for now, if you fancy catching a movie in cinemas this weekend, Jane Fonda and Diane Keaton are back in the Book Club 2, The Next Chapter. And four aging friends take a trip to Italy ahead of one of their friends' weddings in this US comedy. Here's a clip.
Hello, you've reached the home of the retired and gifted. Where are you?
I'm in a church.
What? Are you serious?
We're looking for a venue for the wedding.
You are going to get married in a church? I'm shocked you didn't burst into flames as you crossed the threshold. To Viv and Arthur.
Oh, thank you.
I think we should all go to Italy.
Italy. Whoa.
We'll make it Viv's bachelorette. A bachelorette trip? What are we doing?
I think it's very romantic.
But it's also nuts.
Right, my next guest on the show this evening has just won a massive award. He's from IBC Music, a Dundonald-based company who've just won a massive King's Award for Enterprise. Let's find out more because Ian Wilson joins us in the studio. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Congratulations on winning the award. One of just 3 companies in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, what a massive honour for a small company and a guy who's just in the guitar business. So it's a real privilege for us to have won this award this year.
So before we talk about your company, you've been involved with guitars for many years, because I know that one sitting beside you there is a Loudon guitar, which is a famous name here in Northern Ireland, and it's the guitar that Ed Sheeran uses as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. I actually bought my first Loudon in the mid-'80s. I had a serious car accident and I used the insurance money to buy a Loudon guitar. Little did I know that a number of years later I would end up being their international sales manager, and I worked there from 1993 until 2006, when I then set up my own company.
So you must have a wealth of experience and knowledge from those days then.
I did. I mean, I learned a lot from actually a mentor that I had from Loudon at the time. It was a guy called David McGania, who unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. But he taught me a lot. He was a shareholder in Loudon, and he was also their US distributor. And as I knew nothing of the industry, he would take me around guitar shows, introduce me to key people, key artists, key distributors, and bit by bit I got to learn the industry.
Brilliant. Now 95% of your business is all done abroad. It's outside of the UK, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So we basically act as a matchmaker, if you like, for brands. So brands will approach us and say, we'd like to make a range of guitars or ukuleles or accessories in this price range. We need to find the right partner to do that. So those can be manufactured in the UK, in Eastern Europe, in mainland Europe, US, or somewhere in the Far East.
And of course, you must be supporting lots of big famous names out there as well, who are performing all over the world.
Indirectly we are, because we're manufacturing for the actual brands, and then we're sending container loads of guitars for the brands. But we're working on some interesting projects right now for some famous guitar brands. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you're all based in Dundonald as well.
We are, yep. So very locally based, and it's amazing just to see in Northern Ireland how many hidden secrets and in the creative world that there are, and doing worldwide business. So it's great to be a part of that.
Tell me about the guitar sitting beside you there as well, because I've seen that in a photograph recently.
Yes, this is Riversong Guitars from Canada. This is one of my customers, and we manufacture a number of guitars for him, and he also has a custom shop in British Columbia in Canada. And this guitar is very similar to the guitar that he gave to Prince William.
That's the one, yeah.
When he was visiting British Columbia. And this is actually a model called the Megania model, which is based on my mentor, believe it or not, back from Loudon. And I received this guitar this year from Riversong as a momentum to my original mentor, if you like. So 30 years on, and Riversong have become one of my key customers. We just come back from Anaheim in California, where we did a really good guitar show together. He had an excellent booth there, and a lot of buzz about him too, because he won Acoustic Guitar of the Year in 2022, and that was against some of the top brands in the world, against Martin, against Taylor, and against Yamaha.
Wow.
And we manufactured that guitar, that exact guitar that won Acoustic Guitar of the Year.
Brilliant. So if I was going to buy a guitar like that, how much would it cost?
That one is going to set you back a little bit. That one's probably going to set you back more like $3,000.
Wow.
This one probably set you back more like $5,000 these days. So
right, okay, wow.
Yeah. But I manufacture at all price levels. So starting from entry level right up to the very top.
So now you've won this big award, then what's next for your company?
We are working on a number of key projects, some with artists, some with larger brands, and we're looking to expand really into other areas of the world. The US is a very important market for us. It represents 44% of the world's sales in musical instruments, and we're working on some projects with those customers, as well as the other flip side of my business, which is helping brands then to find routes to market. So that's the other side of what I do. So as the world has changed post-COVID, we're looking at what's now called omni-channel. So traditional distribution, direct to retail or online, and helping brands to find their way through that and sell the best way possible across the world.
So as well as all the stuff you do, what about playing the guitar? Are you any good?
No. I have people that work for my company that are excellent and others that we use from outside, but no.
Brilliant. Well, once again, congratulations on the big award, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, some new murals depicting life in East Belfast have recently been commissioned by the East Belfast Enterprise. And earlier on this week, Jonathan McAlpine joined me in the studio to tell me more about the project. Here's what happened. Okay, let's find out now about a fabulous new project which is coming to East Belfast. I'm pleased to say that Jonathan McAlpine joins us in the studio. How are you?
I'm great, thanks Robin, yeah, good fun.
Good to see you. The last time you were here was just before the East Belfast Awards, and I believe you had another fabulous night this year.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic and great to be back in the room again, you know, after all the COVID hiatus and so on, and see people celebrating what's great about East Belfast. A fantastic night, and one that hopefully people still remember, although there might have been a few sore heads for some.
And of course there's so much going on in that part of the city at the moment, isn't there?
Oh, there really is, yeah. I mean, it's vibrant, and you can see it all around with the constantly seems to be new restaurants and new activities happening for evening and daytime meals.
Yeah.
But there's a buzz about that part of the city, and I think there has been, and it's growing over the recent years.
Move on to something different now. We're talking about some new murals that are being created for East Belfast, and I believe one of them is going up just behind me here on our backdrop.
That's right. Yes, I can see on your backdrop there's a bluey wall that's shown there. That's actually the wall of our building, and that's where one of these murals will appear. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind this, I guess, mural artwork can at times be contentious, but it's often how a community can speak to the world. It's a way of expressing itself, its identity, its place in the world, and this is sort of what we're talking about here.
It's been created by cross-community groups as well this time, hasn't it?
That's what this is really all about. This is really a community engagement project. So the idea behind this is about saying to the people of East Belfast from all walks of life, you know, what is it about your part of the city that means something to you? And how do you want to represent that visually to the outside world?
So how have you created this then? It's local artist Dee Craig's involved as well.
Yes, Dee, who runs Belfast Mural Arts, Dee is the sort of the artist behind this. I mean, listen, if it was down to me, if there's a ruler there and I can draw a straight line, that's about as far as my artwork goes. Dee's the creative here, and will ultimately be the person who's going to get this artwork up onto the wall. But the artwork itself is being designed by the community. So the way we've done this is we've reached out to a whole range of different community organisations, and we've engaged them through a series of workshops. And in these workshops, we've been talking to them, been listening to them, we've been just talking to them about what's life mean to you in East Belfast. And through that, we have got a sense of what's good and what's important, and maybe in some ways nostalgic at times to people from the community. And we're using that to try and design the artwork.
So what kind of things can we expect to see in the artwork then? Can you reveal any of the subjects?
Well, we're trying to keep that a wee bit under wraps, so whenever it comes to it, it's a bit of a wow moment. But certainly what we want this to reflect is something about the heritage of East Belfast, but also the future. Yes. And we want this to be very positive. We want this to be something that people can feel ownership in and inspired by. And I think there's a theme, given the organisation that we're all about supporting people starting out their journey and getting self-employment and enterprise and entrepreneurship. So we want to have some theme within there about that reflects the entrepreneurship that is and always has been within East Belfast and continues to be. That sort of entrepreneurial, innovative spirit of East Belfast.
And again, we're seeing that, as you mentioned earlier on, with all these restaurants and fabulous businesses now springing up all over East Belfast.
Well, absolutely, and you know, it's always been there. You know, if we reflect back in history, we know that East Belfast was the bedrock, was the heart base of the shipbuilders, the rope makers, the vertical takeoff and landing. First aircraft was built in shorts. The air conditioning was invented in Sirocco Works in East Belfast. You know, we have been global innovators, and we've been entrepreneurs forever. That's been driving this economy and the economy of the island of Ireland, in fact. So, you know, what we're doing is the next iteration of that. And what we want to see is give people sort of hope, give people inspiration about, look, I can be part of the next journey to build East Belfast.
I'm thinking about the size of that building behind me there and the thing. It's a pretty big building to cover.
It's a pretty big building to cover. There's two big sort of faces, if you like. One that faces towards the city centre and one that faces towards the west, towards across where the Short Strand community is.
Yeah.
And that's where these artworks will be positioned. Currently, these are, for people that know the area, you'll see these as big blue coloured walls.
Yeah.
These will be replaced by artworks.
Oh, brilliant. Now, tell me about the technique as well. It's called the parachute cloth technique, isn't it?
Yeah, this is Dee, I guess, and he has shown this in other parts of the city and further afield. It's really, I suppose the best way to describe this is that you have a specialist material where the artwork is actually painted onto this material, and then the material is adhesed to the wall. So essentially, the way I think about it is you're going in and you're painting this off-site, and then you're attaching it to the wall a bit like wallpapering.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're putting up a load of wallpaper. And I'm sure I've really underplayed that, Dee. Apologies. But that's sort of the way I think about it.
It sounds amazing. When can we get to see the finished result then?
Well, we're hoping to try to unveil this towards the end of the summer, early autumn, sort of August, September time. And I suppose the real exciting aspect of the material and doing it on material means that we can actually do this in community centres, in sports halls and all across East Belfast, and that's what we're doing. So the people will actually paint it.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, we look forward to that. Jonathan, good to see you as always. Thanks for coming in.
And you, Robin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's get another guest on now. Before we talk to him, let's hear a live performance. It was recorded back in lockdown. Here's Brian Kennedy.
Just heard a melody, and it almost made me cry. My voice was filled with yearning. That's not all. There's something else. No, that's not all. There's something else. Every word was in my ear, and every note crystal clear. Oh, how you captured my heart. Oh, yes. Oh, how you captured my heart. You spoke to me with another tongue, but I understood all right. 'Cause I believe in feeling. That's not all. There's something else. There's something else. No, that's not all. There's something else. Every word was in my ear, and every sound was just a fear. Oh, how you can. there's something else. No, that's not all. There's something else. Every word was in my ear, and every note crystal clear. Oh, how you captured my heart. Oh, yes. Oh, how you captured my heart. Oh, how you captured my heart. Oh, how you captured my heart. Oh, how you captured my heart.
And the man himself joins us now, Mr. Brian Kennedy. How are you?
I'm very well, Robin Elliott. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. So you're a busy person. You're just back from Liverpool, I believe.
Yeah, I was doing a little mini UK tour. We played in the Irish Cultural Centre in London and Hammersmith, and then I went on to, then around the kind of Kent region, and then we ended up in Liverpool. I did 2 nights in a beautiful little venue there called the Prohibition Studio. And live music just seems to be more popular than ever. And then, of course, as you know, Eurovision fever has hit that city.
So what about the UK and Irish entries for Eurovision this year? What do you think the chances are of them getting anywhere?
Well, look, it's all to play for. I think that every year, hopefully people do their very best. They put their best foot forward. Certainly Sam Ryder seems to have completely woken up that competition for England. We have Wild Youth competing for us here in Ireland. I mean, it's all to play for, because the greatest thing about that competition is that it's completely unpredictable. The people that you think are going to do brilliantly, even in the semi-final into the final, you think, oh my God, they didn't get through. I can't believe it. So every year when I watch it, I'm always surprised. How about you? Are you a Eurovision fan?
Well, I'm a massive Eurovision song. I do like May's song. I like the Wild Youth song as well. But of course, back in 2006, you did Eurovision yourself.
I mean, it's scary to think that was 17 years ago this month. And I honestly, Robin, I remember it like it was yesterday. I had just moved into this house where I'm speaking to you from now in Dublin. And so everything was new, representing the country was new. And I stopped being Brian Kennedy, because the minute you arrive in Eurovision, you are Ireland. They go, hello, Ireland. Oh, look, Ireland's here, and all of that. So suddenly it's not lost on you that you're representing a country, depending on the country you're representing. So I just had it was a blast. It was incredibly hard work because you rehearse from the moment you get there. Social media was sort of in its infancy, really, in some ways. So everything you did was filmed. Every move you made was filmed. So it was very, very important to go to every party and every kind of gathering to drum up support, to drum up press, And as you might remember that year, Lordy were the big kind of press darlings,
Exactly.
from Finland. And also I called them the Monsters, and then the Munster won the rugby as well. So it was a monster time at that point.
And you did all right. You came 10th.
Oh man, first of all, I had to get us out of the semi-final, which was no mean feat at all. And then I did get us out of the semi-final into the final. And yes, respectively, I would think number 10 is all right. As I always said to my friends, there's a number 1 in it. It's just 1-0 rather than number 1.
And another piece of Eurovision history, you were actually the 1000th Eurovision entrant, weren't you?
Oh, why am I not surprised that you know your stuff, Robin, for God's sake? I know that is another extraordinary number, isn't it, to be the 1000th contestant in the overall history of all time. That's right. Look, I look back on it with a sense of pride, a sense of fun. It was maybe one of the campus chapters in my life. But yeah, very glad I did it. And before you ask me again, would I do it again? Never say never.
Exactly. And you had Una Healy with you as well, didn't you?
Man, that's the thing. I remember we were looking for singers. Callum McCall was my MD at the time. He was playing guitar. And so we were interviewing, trying to find, really, because all the singing is live.
Yeah.
So you have to find somebody who's, is going to be the best possible singer on the night, who can cope with that level of, pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And in walks this young woman from Tipperary who, of course, she's beautiful and everything, but she had a guitar on. she sang so effortlessly in the audition, and that person turned out to be Una Healy from the Saturdays. So when you do Google me later on, hopefully when you see that performance, you'll see the wonderful Una, and she's a friend to this day.
And your song was Every Song is a Cry for Love.
Yeah, I wrote that with my friend Callum. I hadn't, we were working on a record anyway that became Homebird, that record, and it just was one of those kind of songs that it had something a wee bit special, but I just thought, well, I don't know what we're going to do with this. And then, things collide sometimes, and suddenly out of the blue, I was approached, would I consider, representing the country? And suddenly we listened to hundreds of songs were sent in. But I didn't ever feel that, okay, that's the song that's going to bring us there. And then that song was around, and I suddenly thought, well, it's a brand new song. No one's ever heard it. So we presented it to RTE, and they were like, yeah, put it in the mix. So, and as you might remember on the Late Late Show, then the audience at home decided which song I was going to bring, and that was the one that won the competition.
Later on, we've got Niamh Kavanagh popping up on the show. Of course, it's 30 years since she won Eurovision for Ireland with In Your Eyes, a song that I think is one of the greatest Eurovision songs of all time.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what a singer. I mean, the thing about Eurovision is, certainly we send all kinds of, puppeteers and all kinds of strange things, but Ireland have a great reputation of sending really great singers, Johnny Logan, people like that, and Emer Quinn, of course, the person who won it the last time for us with The Voice. So yeah, Niamh, I'm a huge fan of. We've sung together socially as well as professionally. What a voice, and also what a great song. In Your Eyes was an amazing song, I think.
Now, you've got something big happening on the 20th of May in Larne. It's the Friends Goodwill Festival, and yourself and Curtis Staggers are going to be on the lineup.
Yes, and Mary Coughlin also. I mean, it's one of those things now that, Robin, I don't know about you, but now when we look back on our lives, things seem to be collected in decades now, not just years.
Yeah.
And to think about what happened in the Good Friday Agreement and 25 years ago, and the idea that me and Van Morrison were singing outside the City Hall, and Bill Clinton was, president of America at the time, we've come on in leaps and bounds in terms of, how we are as a country, how we are culturally. So to get an opportunity to go to Larne and stand up there and sing, we're all still here. We're all still very lucky to be here. And just celebrate one more time. I love the fact that these days, Robin, we gather now in large numbers for celebration, not for protest necessarily. And so that's a great thing, I think.
And back in 1995, you first met Curtis Staggers performing at Belfast City Hall during President Clinton's historic visit.
That's right. Yeah, and then we went on. I moved to America, as you might remember, in 2000 to be on Broadway in Riverdance. And then I made a record called Get On With Your Short Life. And Curtis and I collaborated on a song, actually, called Don't Look At Me That Way. If you go back and Google it, anybody who's watching this, Google Don't Look At Me That Way. And Curtis Staggers is playing saxophone, and also and he was a co-writer, and he also sings the really beautiful harmonies. So we stayed in touch over the years, and he's just somebody that I admire. We were both long-haired chaps back in the 90s doing our thing, and of course he had that wonderful hit, I Wonder Why. Yeah. I've been a fan. I'm still a fan. I think he's just really seasoning as an artist himself. So it'd be great to see him again.
And what are your memories of that gig back in 1995? Were you nervous?
Well, you don't get time to be nervous in a way, whether it's that or singing at the George Best Memorial or whatever it is in Belfast. Of course, it's not lost on me that I'm in my hometown. Belfast made me the kind of fella I am, really. So yeah, there was a moment, of course, when I was looking out at that T-junction, and there was 90,000 people there, I think, and wow. 1 billion people watching at home. 1 billion people watched that at home. But again, you're so caught up in it, and I was so busy singing and looking towards Van Morrison to see what cues he was going to give me and things like that. And we sang "There's No Religion Here Today," days like this. I don't think it really hit me until I saw the footage a couple of days later, and suddenly you're like I say, you're arrested by this T-junction of people where there would have just been cars before. It was the only traffic were people. Yeah. And then the momentous moment where you think, I know that we culturally have changed gear here. We've gone up a gear that we didn't even realize that we had. So yeah, it was I was very, very moved by all of it.
Now, also on the Friends of Goodwill Festival, Mary Coughlin is also on the lineup. She's a good friend of yours as well, isn't she?
An old friend of mine. I've known Mary for 30 plus years. And again, someone that I admire hugely vocally and as a friend as well. I just think she's incredibly gifted and people adore her around the world. She's just back from Australia a few days ago from her tour. So it'll just be lovely to get a chance to hang out for the day, do some music together. Maybe we might even think, Robin, that we might do a song together. Let's see what happens.
That would be good. You got to do that.
Yeah, I think so.
You've also been making a movie recently with Cinemagic.
I have. It's called So What If It Rains? And again, you know, given that the temperature of change that's going on in Northern Ireland, we wanted to, of course, it's important to recognise what happened historically in the past, but to also, you know, somewhat throw wonderful positivity into the future and talk about how, you know, Northern Ireland is an extraordinary place in the world. And even Hillary Clinton was talking about it recently in the news, you know, in terms of the great thing about coming out of such darkness is that suddenly the future's so bright now for Northern Ireland. And we wanted to kind of just talk about that a little bit in the film. I play a heterosexual man. Can you believe it? So I always say there isn't a gay man out there in the world who hasn't had to pretend to be straight. So, you know, we've had a wee bit of practice. And I play this kind of old lover of somebody. I don't want to give too much away, but it's just a tiny little love letter to the possibilities to come for Northern Ireland. It's called So What If It Rains? And I'm so proud to be part of it. Myra Campbell, of course, was the writer and director. Did you interview her recently?
I haven't, but I've had Taylor Lally on the show, who's also in the movie with you, and she's a great new performer.
Yeah, indeed. And that's the thing, you know, there's new talent. The little actors, the little guys that were in it, God, I felt so old, Robin. They were like 16 and 17. I'm nearly 57. You know, I'm 40 years older than these people. So I remember in Northern Ireland that they have no concept of. It's so interesting. And then they are literally children not of the trouble, so the untroubled generation. And I love that. So
what were things like for a 16-year-old Brian Kennedy then? Were they difficult times?
When I look back now, you know, hindsight, of course, is 2020 vision, even though it seemed very confusing at the time. Yeah, I mean, it was a very difficult time in history. I was obviously struggling with identity and sexuality and all those other things too. The Catholic Church kind of had us under their heel, you know. The Falls Road was a very dangerous place to be. It was very much occupied territory. The British Army were everywhere. I mean, literally, our environment was on fire. There was smoke everywhere, usually on a daily basis. You heard about some kind of atrocity on a daily basis. So it felt very, very, very unsafe all the time. And I started then to think, how can I go into the world? What's the rest of the world like? Surely it can't all be like this. So I suppose I was, you know, preparing to get to London eventually. I was preparing to be a singer. I started to sing in local churches and things because that was the only outlet at the time. So yeah, I was still in my infancy in lots of ways in terms of my identity, in terms of my profession, let's say. But yeah, I mean, I look back on it now and I think, I remember a therapist saying to me one time, it's a miracle you even survived any of that.
Exactly. Now you've become a successful singer-songwriter. You've appeared on Broadway. You've written novels. You've performed for President Clinton. But tell me this, is there going to be more acting in the future then?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't turn it down necessarily if it was an interesting part. The thing about Myra Campbell's script was that it was so interesting. It was very, it was fresh. It was saying something new about Northern Ireland for a change. And I mean, ultimately, honestly, Robin, give the acting jobs to the actors, really. You know, I'm not saying anybody should absolutely stay in their lane, but at the same time, I'm in the middle of recording album number 18. I'm right in the middle of that. And so that's all going great. I've got loads of gigs throughout the year. If something came up that was interesting, I certainly would take a look at it. But like I say, give the acting jobs to the actors, please.
And what about the new album? What can we expect from that?
Well, it's Joni Mitchell's 80th birthday in November. So this is volume 2 of a love letter to Joni from my previous album. So we're right in the middle of recording what will be volume 2 of that series. So that's what to expect. And I hope to have it out by November at least.
Exactly. Well, you're playing the Friends of Goodwill Festival in Larne on the 20th of May, along with Mary Coughlin and Curtis Staggers. Tickets are available from eventbrite.co.uk, or for more details, check out the website, which is midandeastantrim.gov.uk/friendsgoodwill.
And Robin, can I just give a shout out, please, to Wilma Rogers, who of course was the lovely wife of John Rogers, who we lost very suddenly in January. If you're watching, Wilma, we're thinking of you and your family and your grandkids. It was a very sudden loss, and I just want to acknowledge that here with you. He was an extraordinary person, and loads of the incredible musical moments in my career, John was there, you know, with Van Morrison and you know, all of that, Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan, all of those years. So yeah, just a shout out to them, and I'm so sorry for the loss.
Lovely tribute. Brian, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Christopher Street. Christopher Street was busy tonight as I made my way back home. One of these nights I'll turn on the light, like that taxi by the payphone. Well, I've been here a week, but it feels like more. And God knows how long I'll last. I picked up the mail from the hallway floor, and I'm finally making peace with the past. Now most of my friends are busy tonight, just getting their kids upstairs now. How did our lives change so fast? You just never know what's up the road ahead. Sheridan Square was crazy today when I took the train uptown. Now it started to snow, but I just didn't care, 'cause I never dreamed I'd be Broadway. Now Christopher Street has quietened down. Seems even New York needs to sleep sometimes. But one of these nights I'll turn on the light, and I'll find you waiting to love me. On Christopher Street,
Another brilliant song from Brian Kennedy. Now, before we finish the show tonight, we're going to take you back 30 years. And of course, Niamh Kavanagh won the Eurovision with her fabulous song, In Your Eyes. Let's go into the archives now, and here's a clip of Niamh telling me her memories from that Eurovision night. I remember your big night, 1993, Mill Street in Cork. Linda Martin had won the year before.
That's right.
With Why Me. Then you came along, and I remember watching it that night, and everybody just knew that Ireland were going to do it for a second year. Did you know you were going to
No,
win?
I didn't. I didn't know. I just, my main pressure on the night was to sing well, you know, and I knew I couldn't lose then. Not necessarily win the competition, but because we'd won the year before, there was no pressure on me to win as such. Because back in those days, we didn't, before the Celtic Tiger started really roaring, you know, it wasn't a normal thing that we would have won. I mean, it was exceptional that Linda had won the year before, and we were so excited by that. And then the next thing, there we are. In Mill Street. Oh, what a time we had in Mill Street. Like, it was just like living in Eurovision land.
So what's your memories of Eurovision night? Is it all a blur?
I've wonderful memories of it, actually, funny enough. I was very calm most of the night, you know, except the last few votes. The last few votes was a bit manic, but I remember just before I went on stage, the way you worked, you know, you kind of came around to the side of the stage, and there was all the public up here, sitting up here, and so basically they were all up there and passing down notes for me to sign, because they could. I was right there,
yeah.
So I did that, and I was chittering away. And then I think Sweden were on before me, so I was watching them dancing to Eloise was the name of the song. I remember, because you always know the song that's on before you.
Yes, yeah.
And I was dancing away to that, and then the postcard comes up, and the place went mental.
Yeah.
So I went on and I did the song, and I was very relaxed, and everybody was remarking on how amazingly poised I was and so elegant and so in control of everything. And then as the song finished, rapturous applause, relief for me because I'd actually hit the notes that I was worried about. Walked off the side of the stage and fell in a light box. You don't see that, obviously, but
right,
you know,
yeah.
that's, you know, because I wasn't quite watching where I was going, you know, so all the poise was out the door then. But, you know, the whole night felt like that. It was just really dreamlike. And so I was just pleased I'd achieved what I meant to do, which was basically to sing well. And I was chuffed, you know, it was such a great night. And then we got to the voting, and they were giving us champagne and everything. I wasn't really drinking it, of course. And but my backing singers clearly were. If you watch the remake, you see there's all sorts of choreography going on in the background that I didn't know about. But and then we did the voting, and the voting was exciting. It was kind of calm in the middle because we were doing well, but not necessarily in the contention. And then, of course, came probably one of the most exciting votes ever, because it was down to the very last 12.
Yeah. Myself
and the UK.
Which was Sonia that year, wasn't it?
Sonia, bless her. Yes, another redhead. Yes, two of us there.
So was there a rivalry backstage?
Not really,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, to be fair, you know, I don't know if you've ever really gone to Eurovision, Robin, but all the delegates, we spend a lot of time in the same space together, and on the run up to it, you do, you know, events and stuff, and you meet everybody, and the next thing you know, you're dancing in a Greek style, you know, singing Opa, or whatever it is you're doing, you know, and you get to know your fellow performers really well, and so there's a kind of a camaraderie, you're all in there to do the same thing. Now, funnily enough, UK didn't really mix so much that year, but I think there was a lot for Sonia to do on that. You know,
she was being looked after by Simon Cowell at the time, wasn't she?
The lovely Simon Cowell, yeah, Simon. But this before he was Simon Cowell. Yes, Simon was with her, and he was with Arista Records, you know, BMG umbrella. Anyway, they were there, and we were down to the last 12, and really at that point I didn't care who won. It was, you know, because quite frankly it was very stressful. And then we won, which was phenomenal, and I didn't know whether I had half my costume still on by the time people were finished dragging out of me, and my makeup or anything. I just had to go back out on stage. They don't tell you what to do. Walked the wrong way, went to the orchestra, completely missed the award given, sang the song at the end with my dancing backing singers behind me to Ole Ole. The crowd were loving it, you know, and it was an amazing experience, you know. And weirdly, when I went back in 2010, even though we didn't win, it felt the same, because your job is still the same in those 3 minutes, is to sing the song the best you can and to really own those 3 minutes. And I'm as proud of the second one as I am the first, because even though I say to people all the time, I've been to 2 Eurovisions, I've won one, I didn't win the other. But to me, they're the same.
Yes.
Just longer the second time.
So that's all we have time for on the show this week. Thank you for joining us. Have yourselves a great Eurovision weekend. And of course, the best of luck to May Muller with I Wrote a Song. I'll see you back here same time next week. Bye-bye.